Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. We are so excited to have you join us today for our live product webinar demonstration. If you're here because you're searching for a better way to create school schedules, you're in the right place. You might be wondering, is it true? Can a software program really help me create my school schedule more easily? And I'm here to tell you, yes, the rumors are true. There is a simpler, easier way to create your annual school schedule. We also have an exclusive offer for anyone who is joining us today. We'll be sharing more details at the end, so please stay through until then. My name is Alice Lai, and I am the Director of K-12 Scheduling Solutions here at the District Management Group. Joining me today is my colleague, Craig Gibbons, our Senior Vice President. We both happen to love all things scheduling and are really thrilled to share with you all the ways in which we here at DMGroup provide both customized support and tools to help schools strategically schedule. Like many of you, I taught for a long time, about 15 years, both at the elementary and middle school level. I was also a middle school principal for 5 years. In every building I worked in, I created school-wide schedules, grade level schedules, classroom schedules, minimum day schedules, assembly schedules. The list goes on and on. Back then, that meant a lot of color-coded Post-its, poster paper, Excel spreadsheets, magnets, you name it, and I've probably tried it. I always tell people that I really wish I'd known about our DMschedules for elementary school scheduling software program when I was principaling. What used to take me, 2 weeks during the summer vacation, I can now do in as little as 2 hours. So all this to say, you're in for a real treat today to see the software live in action with Craig, our expert software leader. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. Feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself, add your name, your school district, the state that you're in, and your role. We'd love to learn more about who's in the Zoom room with us today. As we move through the features of the program, please feel free to share any questions that you might have. The Q&A box is there, and we'll try to get it to as many as we can during the Q&A portion of our time together. We also know that y'all are really busy running classrooms, schools, and districts. So if you do need to leave or miss part of the webinar for any reason, don't worry, a recording will be sent to you in the next day or so. And finally, we really love feedback. So please complete the short survey at the end of the webinar so that we can continue to improve our practice. So for those of you who might not know us, before we begin, we always like to start with a quick overview of who we are here at DMGroup, our mission, what we do, and why we are here today. So we were actually founded in 2004 with a mission to achieve systemic improvement in public education. And we focus on doing two things really well, combining management techniques and educational best practices. We define success as what is good for students, what's good for operations, and what is cost effective. So these three pillars are at the core of the work that we do with schools and districts. And at the intersection of these three things is our mission to achieve lasting results for students. We partner with hundreds of districts from coast to coast to help address their most pressing needs in districts large and small, and in rural, urban, and suburban areas. Our current offerings combine management techniques and education best practices and are organized into four big buckets, four main areas. So our DM learning team, our DM consulting team, DMschedules, and breakthrough results. Our DMschedules team focuses on providing structured and facilitated approaches to address district challenges, which includes our DMschedules for elementary schools and special education software programs, as well as secondary scheduling support. And here at DMGroup, we've been doing research and work for well over a decade in both elementary and special education scheduling. We've developed an elementary scheduling framework that incorporates three key components. So we take scheduling expertise, really intensive, customized implementation support and training, and combine that with an easy to use scheduling software to help schools establish a clear practice and process for how to build better school schedules and special education schedules. So we'd love to take just a minute and hear from you all today and sort of launch a poll. So Craig, if you can take just a minute to walk us through the poll and the responses, that would be wonderful.
Will do. And hello, everybody. We're going to kick it off with a poll, as Alice said. So we'd love to know, just to set the stage for the things you're wrestling with, what are your biggest scheduling challenges? So we just pushed out that poll to you all. Please feel free to select as many of those challenges as are appropriate for you, but we're talking about adhering to those instructional minute guidelines, right? So I want 90 minutes of math and 60 minutes of, or excuse me, 90 minutes of ELA, 60 minutes of math, and those sorts of things. Intervention. So how are you helping kids not only catch up with the things they might be falling behind a little bit, but even maybe accelerating their learning with our recent history and things that they never really got access to. Also the student services, right? So as we think about those additional needs, how do those fit into the schedule? Are those working well? Specials rotations, shared staff, more and more commonplace, right? And also those scheduling conflicts, which we know we're going to hit when we're scheduling, as well as how we communicate with others. And get a shared understanding of what we're trying to accomplish with the schedule. So as I was talking through that, people have been diligently responding. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share that out with you. But what you can see here is quite a few folks wrestling with that intervention enrichment time. How do we find that time, that extra time for kids to get what they need and personalize their learning needs? Specials rotations, yep. So how do we fit it all in with the staff we have, potentially on the days we have those staff or other challenges on top of that, and then a pretty good spread across the rest of them. So looks like we've got quite a few folks sharing some of the challenges that we see often. So we'll make sure we try to touch on these as we go through. Thank you for sharing and helping us understand what's top of mind for you.
Thank you so much, Craig. The great news is for y'all is you're not alone. As you can see, a lot of the challenges you're experiencing on your campus is really common for schools and districts across the nation. And the really great news is we have a lot of really awesome tools to help you address those challenges in particular. So what we're going to do just for the next few minutes, we're going to highlight a few of the key challenges that we hear from schools and districts to really set the stage for how our software tools can transform the ways in which you design your school schedule. So the first visual that you see on your screen is a visual of a district with about 5 elementary schools. What we've learned in our work with schools and our research is that as soon as you start building that main building schedule, any early decisions you make early on really start to influence what can happen next for your homeroom schedule, your grade level schedule, anybody that is creating your special schedule or your special education services, how those operate throughout the day. It's all really intimately interconnected. So those first decisions we're making are incredibly important because, as you can see very quickly, you have this interconnected web of decisions and relationships between all of those schedules that can really either help you achieve your goals or become a hindrance to achieving your goals. So there is a lot hinging on those first few handful of decisions in that main building schedule. The good news is that it can be done, but it is innately challenging. The main takeaway that we really wanted to emphasize here is that the first biggest sort of most common challenge we see in our work with schools and districts is that when it comes to scheduling, these schedules for schools can become very complex. And scheduling in schools is very complex organizations, with hundreds of interconnected, interdependent schedules. Small changes to the main schedule can have really large ripple effects on the other schedules throughout your school and on the ability of your staff to serve all students. Now, the second most common challenge that we see is really managing the multitude of perspectives when it comes to scheduling. So as someone who has been through building schedules in the past, you've probably heard a wide variety of ideas from many stakeholders about what's most important in a schedule. It's probably, depending on, whoever is, sharing that opinion, what subject they teach, what grade level they teach, where they may have worked before, even just different things that they like to do for students. So if you're managing a building as a principal or a district leader and really trying to see if your expectations are being met through the schedule, which is essentially our plan for helping students achieve, it's really hard to see that with the variety of opinions and perspectives that come to the table when it comes to scheduling. Inevitably, everybody wants something that doesn't always line up, and that can be challenging. Our schedules are also often expressed with a variety of means, making it sometimes difficult to answer simple questions as, how many minutes of reading or phonics are scheduled at every school in the district. Furthermore, it is sometimes difficult to find the latest version of a schedule through a multitude of email attachments. So what we find is that, these things that we want to achieve, our priorities, that we want to be present in every schedule. It could be, perhaps common planning time for teachers, daily intervention, enrichment, equitable specials, special education. Instead of schedules being a catalyst to help you reach your goals, they can oftentimes become a barrier. Now, you might be thinking, well, the answer is I need more time in the day or more staff. We know there's no easy button for any of those things, especially with the challenges of staffing, and changing the length of the school day. Here at DMGroup, we know that we can figure something out to work with what we have. We have extensive experience doing that with schools and districts across the nation. So we also know that there are many challenges that come along with inefficient schedules as well. So here are just a few more to highlight. The first being fragmented instructional time. Someone referred to this yesterday when I met with them as, Alice, my schedule is really choppy. We had a 90-minute beautiful block for literacy, but we had to split it up with like lunch or recess. So very quickly, we've seen those core blocks of time get interrupted. Additionally, insufficient time for intervention, enrichment, or special services, not finding the time for when kids need something more. Also that inconsistent allocation of time, understanding how many minutes each student should get each day. Is that consistent across classrooms and schools? Additionally, a lack of a common planning time, those opportunities, oftentimes people, not finding it at all or not finding it consistently again, because of the constraints of the schedule. We also hear about a mismatch of what you need and what you have, with, kind of being wedged between what you want for your students and what's actually happening. The schedule can either support or be a barrier for those goals. And our schedules are inevitably a collection of trade-offs. We like to say here at DMGroup, you can schedule anything, but you can't schedule everything. So our DMschedule solution features a ton of really efficient and easy to use features that Craig's going to walk you through in just a few minutes, that are really designed to leverage best practices to meet the needs of all students. A few fabulous features that I want to highlight here for you to look forward to see. You can drag and drop blocks of time. You can automate your staff schedule creation. I love this one the most, I think. Whenever you update in one place, it automatically gets updated in all the other places where those schedules exist. No more going back and forth editing like 10 different Google Docs, schedules, and tabs. You can also develop multiple scenarios or versions of different schedules. You can validate your schedule to see if it's working to meet those goals and those parameters that you set up. And it's really easy to share. With a click of a button, you can send a link to anyone to get a live version of your current schedule. So I'm really excited to hand it off to Craig, who will walk you through a live demo of the software in action. Again, please stay tuned for a special announcement about our exclusive offer for anyone who's joining us today for our webinar.
Excellent. Thank you, Alice. We'll go ahead and dive in. And I see out there in the audience, we've got some folks from all around the country. Some folks are current customers, so great to see you again, and want to make sure you reach out. If there's anything you don't learn today, reach out to the support team so you can go ahead and get your personalized instruction on how to handle each item as a customer that we can help you out with. So what we're about to walk through today is the culmination. As Alice was saying, we've been around for a while, 19 years. We just had the birthday cake and everything, so we've been celebrating it. But throughout those 19 years, we've been working with a number of different issues in and around districts and schools around getting special education challenges sorted out, or really instituting your strategic plans, how to use time more effectively, attendance, a number of different things. And over the past decade of those 19 years, we've really honed in on how do you use time more effectively, and what does that mean for scheduling, and how can schedules be a lever to help you achieve those goals and to do things more efficiently and leverage the people and the places and the time you have more effectively. So this is what we're going to walk you through now. One big thing was, as we were working with challenges with how people use their time and how they build schedules, we didn't find good tools for elementary schools. There are plenty of SIS systems out there, and you're able to build schedules, but they're really more designed for secondary schedules. So those individual student schedules, not the cohort type of scheduling that comes with elementary school scheduling. So we built this, happy to show it to you now. We've done the hard work and gone through that blood, sweat, and tears, so you don't have to. And we have the answers, we believe, to a lot of those common challenges, as well as those nuancy things that might be really specific to your school and your districts. So to get us started, I'm just going to the web. There's nothing you need to install. You just need to have a browser. And I'm going to log in as if I'm a principal. The first thing you'll note that this is multiple academic year enabled. So we build our schedules this year. We've got customers that are already working in next year's schedules so they can coexist and they can copy this year's schedules into next to really expedite the process as they schedule year on year and just make those adjustments for curriculum or different enrollment and what's happening in your schools. I'm going to go ahead and select this academic year to walk you through the examples today. So as we get started, the first things you're going to see is your district, your school, the status of your schedule. So we're going to keep track of where you are in the scheduling process. I'm logged in as a principal view right now, but if you are joining us today as somebody that has district level oversight and need to be able to see multiple schools, you'd have the ability to do that. So it's going to look a little different, but you'd be able to look at multiple schools. Principals often working within the school tech context I'm in. We do have multiple products, which Alice mentioned. We're going to focus on the school scheduling product today, but there is a special education product that is focused on student services. It's all built on the same platform, so you do have the ability to move between those solutions if you have them. We'll focus on school scheduling today. All of these screens, by the way, as I'm going through them, they all have short 3 to, I think our longest one is 8-minute videos so that you can get that help just in time with the screen you're working on. Sadly, we get those comments from principals where, hey, I found 30 minutes tonight, in the evening or on a weekend to work on my schedule. You're going to have plenty of support just when you need it. We have documentation, videos, everything. So that's all going to be accessible to you as you log in and get started with your schedule. What we're looking at here is a bit of a wizard. We're going to walk you through step by step how to construct your schedule. So we're not only making it easier and faster, we're also going to build some of that best practices in that we've discovered over the last decade plus in terms of the methodology and some of the decisions that can actually help you build better schedules for kids. So that's all going to be baked in the steps we go through, and we'll do that one by one. One of the really powerful things that's in the software is this ability to create scenarios, right? So you get started, you have this idea, enrollment updates. Oh, I gotta try something new. Or curriculum, you know what, we'd really like to shift the number of minutes around like this or that. And that can be really time consuming when you're using Post-it notes. Hopefully those are still stuck on the wall and you can keep track, but take a picture, do it again, or spreadsheets, and hopefully remembering all the interconnected dependencies that are in the schedules you're building. Super simple here. Just create a new scenario. You can copy the one you have, make the changes, and you have multiple versions to look at. Incredibly valuable during COVID where you needed in-person, remotes, multiple versions of each. And your hybrid schedules, right? Just move between scenarios and people manage through that very easily. So what I'll do is we walk through methodically, as I said, each step that you need to undertake to build your schedule. Now, the first step, it mentions staff information is optional. It's really, you can build an entire schedule without any staff defined and basically come back later and add the staff you have. Or if you know most of the people in your building for homeroom teachers and special teachers, maybe classroom aides, you can set them up in advance, and the folks you're hiring or maybe backfilling for, you can add them as you go. But it's very simple. We would just come in, enter the student or the teacher's name or the staff member's name and the email address. The email address becomes important because we can actually track people across schools. So if you have a specials teacher for, let's say, art that's shared across buildings, no problem. We're going to identify them here. We'll put the email address on just to make sure our Anderson is the same person in different buildings. We'll save that and be able to track her as she's working in both buildings. But very simple, just going in, clicking, adding that name, adding that email. The next step, and I'll jump back to the home screen, is to really put the things together that you need to get started to schedule anyway. So what does the school day look like? And how does our schedule behave in terms of rotations? That's our school setup. So first things first, you say when the schedule starts, when it ends. If you want to start that at first period, great. If you want to include arrival and dismissal periods, not a problem. You're in the driver's seat. So you go ahead and set up what that school day looks like. Lunch windows, we will visualize that on the schedule for you. So you just remember where exactly you're trying to get those lunch rotations in. All of these first steps are actually going to build on the fly a custom scheduling grid for you based on your schedules, your start and end times, your grades, etc. So these early questions are just setting the stage for that scheduling grid, keeping track of what do we need to keep track of for teachers. So what about planning time? What about that lunch and other attributes that will be used throughout the scheduling process just to double check to make sure that what you intended to schedule was actually what you did schedule. And I'll ask you questions along the way should you make some changes on the fly as you work through trade-offs. The next screen is really our grades and sections. So what are the grades we're supporting? How many classrooms do we have? We, by default, will just use letters to depict that, but these could be room numbers or other designations that you track your homerooms by. And then if we've set up those staff, we can go ahead and select any of the staff that we've inputted for those homeroom assignments and so on. And like I said, if there are folks that you don't know about, no problem, you can come back and enter those later. You can build the whole schedule without naming anybody. But very quickly, we'll define what grades do we have and how many classrooms. The next one, and actually one little thing I'll call out here as we're going, I mentioned earlier, there's a video and tutorials for many of these pages. All I have to do, you'll see this help with this page up in the upper right. I click on that, it's going to give me the tutorial that's relevant for the page. And it's also going to give me access to these other things that might help me if I have further questions. So those will appear throughout the software as we go through. But this step, schedule cycle, is really thinking about how my schedule behaves. So if my academic schedule, putting aside specials or creative arts for a moment, if my academic schedule looks the same every day and the only thing that's changing is what special I offer, I'd say, yeah, this looks the same every day. If you have a more complex schedule with an early release every Wednesday or an assembly or you name it, it can handle that too. The system's designed to be very simple. And as you need to add additional features or complexities to your schedule, it will expand and show you more as you need it and not overwhelm you with it right out of the gate. So we're going to start nice and simple, same schedule Monday through Friday academically. I can define my special cycle, which may or may not behave the same as my academic schedule. So if I have a Monday through Friday schedule, some people have a 4-day specials rotation or a 6-day, just so those specials kids don't miss the same one every time we have a Monday holiday, things like that. You have the ability to set that up in here and then label those however you deem necessary for your school. That's just figuring out how does my schedule behave. Again, this is going to set up that custom grid I was mentioning. Period allocation is usually where we hunker down. What are the subjects or the periods that you want kids to have access to down the left? What grades are we serving across the top? And the intersection of those two are the minutes for that subject for that grade. Again, this can expand and give you opportunities to set different minutes by day, by subject, and so on. But this is where we get started to say, here's my plan for kiddos, and here's what I want them to have access to. It will keep track of the minutes that you've scheduled and let you know when you're over or under the number of minutes available based on the start and end time you entered. You can also create individual subjects for certain grades and not others. So in the case of your upper grades, maybe you have a separate science class. And I'm just picking what science type it is. I can rename it, use my own definition for what that subject is called. And then I'm just going to select 4th and 5th grade. Now I have that subject for 4th and 5th grade. And oh, by the way, I'm 45 minutes over. I can go over to this subject, remove that for those grades, and voila. So I can set this up as personalized as I need to and as specific as I need to for every grade. But this is going to drive what we have to schedule in a moment. These color codes are deliberate. We want you to be able to at a glance see where my ELAs are, where my maths are, where my interventions are. A couple of special blocks here. So intervention and enrichment is something that we promote as best practices. So I've put in 30 minutes a day. And also specials. We set this up to say how much time do I want kids to have access to specials every day. And then in a moment, I'll show you how we say what goes in those specials. But this is going to be the driver for everything that we're going to schedule. And note, when you get into the scheduling, you start to see those things where the puzzle pieces aren't quite working the way you want them to, and you might need to nudge things forward and back. We'll keep track of those adjustments as you schedule. So we have the plan view here. We'll keep track of any adjustments where kids didn't quite get the minutes you wanted or got too much of another set of minutes. This is showing everything off because I haven't started scheduling yet, but we're going to help you keep track of what was my plan and what did I actually do, and is that okay? So we'll keep moving, but this is going to drive a lot of those scheduling steps that we'll see in a moment. Departmentalization. So if you use teacher teaming or departmentalization, one teacher teaches ELA while the other one teaches math and science, and then kids change rooms for those classes. We support that. We don't necessarily look at it as a best practice, but if you have that model in your schools, you can absolutely do that. And you can create however your teams are structured. If you have 5 classrooms in your grade and there's a teacher team of 2 and a teacher team of 3, or however that plays out for you, not a problem. So you can configure departmentalization if you're using it. Specials this is where now we're saying what goes into those specials blocks. I reserved the time earlier. Now what goes in them? So this is where I can list what specials do we offer, for what grades, and that can be different, right? So maybe it's finger painting for pre-K, but it's something else for other grades, or maybe we offer health in 4th and 5th, but not the other grades. We can define that here, and also how often a student will get access to that special during the course of the specials rotation. We can also then say, well, who teaches those specials? So we can come through and assign those staff that we've created to each one of these subjects. And this can mix and match too. So if you have more than one PE teacher in your building, not a problem, just add a second PE teacher and say who that is. You can also have that scenario where maybe your PE teacher is also teaching health. We can designate the same person's teaching that, so we got to be able to track that when we build the schedule. So all of this is going to be able to keep track of who's teaching what and how often kids should get each special, depending on the grades they're in. Last but not least, because you can create so many scenarios, easy enough, you can keep track of that here with our notes. So all that setup, what's happening is it is generating behind the scenes this scheduling grid that we're seeing now. So it's using the times I entered, it's using the grades in the sections, and I'm looking at a grade level view here. So I'm looking at all of grade 5, all of grade 4, all of grade 3. If I needed to get into the individual grade and look at classrooms, I just click the grade heading, and now I'm into a view of just 5th grade. Our best practices start with trying to get as much grade level scheduled as you can to promote regrouping of students based on like need and other best practices. So I'm going to start here and walk you through some of the basic mechanics. So this scheduling grid designed again based on what you input, so it's going to be custom to your school. The other thing to note over here, these colored blocks going from top to bottom, that ties back to the table where we said the periods, the grades, and how many minutes. They're proportionized blocks here based on what you entered, and they're sequenced in a way that highlights their constraints. So for example, top of the pile, morning meeting. So if you do have that and choose to schedule it, it knows it needs to come early in the morning. And I can just click and drag. That's all I'm doing here. It's going to keep track of where I've scheduled before, so I don't need to think about that. It just happens. A lot of these things that you do on spreadsheets and stickies that you've got to remember and hope you get right, it's taken care of for you. So stop worrying about that. Start worrying about your schedule and making sure you got the one you want. The next things in my block are those places that have space constraints or teacher constraints, right? Specials right on the top of that pile. So again, just dragging and dropping is all I'm doing to depict, in this case, where I'd like that specials rotation to occur for each grade. I'm going through too, and this is something that we do as part of getting you onboarded, but we'll walk you through best practices. For example, specials, the way I've laid them out, I deliberately made them contiguous grades so that transitions for specials might be reduced if the materials are a little more similar. I've also made sure that those kindergartners who are going to put their boots on at the end of the day or wrestle with getting out the door during dismissal, that they're not at the end of the day. So that kind of guidance, that personalized guidance, we're going to work through with you as we get you oriented in the software, but also understand, what are you wrestling with? Chances are we've solved thousands of special problems and maybe a half a dozen ways. And we'll work with you to figure out what the best way to solve each problem is while giving you guidance, and the software will give you some guidance along the way with best practices. There's a subtle thing that's happening here too as I place the specials. It's keeping track of whether I've staggered these. So especially where, again, specials highly constrained with space or staff, it's going to let me know if I've done something that might have created some constraints around the staffing with this guide on the side, where I can pick any of the different subject types that I know I need to have deconflicted. Intervention and enrichment is another one where I want to flood a grade with all the reading teachers and math teachers and specialists I have to help that grade. I don't want those to overlap across grades, because that's really going to reduce how many kids they can reach, how many kids they can regroup productively. So these guides on the side are going to help you make sure you're deconflicting those times that really require you to be grade level and not too much stress on time or space there. I would just continue this process to drag and drop and place at any point. I can start over, but it's much easier to just come up to the top, copy the version of the schedule I'm on. It'll create a whole nother version for me to iterate on, or even share out. So as I'm building out my schedule, I can very quickly click on schedule sharing, share a link. It's kind of Google Doc-esque in that people can see that link. They can come take a look. They can only view it. They can't change it or manipulate it like I am or like you will when you have access to the software, but very easily share what's going on with the schedules. And that's also the step we use at the end too. Share out that schedule, let everybody see it. And if they want to print it, go ahead and print it. Don't worry about printing it yourself. Let them do that. You can print also too, if you need to, from any of these pages. So lots you can do as you're getting settled here and thinking about where blocks are placed. We drag big blocks on. You may need to adjust the time and then figure out where those minutes are going to come in, but I can very easily drag to adjust the minutes of that period. And you'll see there's pluses and minuses that are occurring. That's to remind you, you had a plan and now you're over or under. One thing that we'll promote here too is I could take this big 90-minute block, break it up into a whole group and small group and other things, especially if I'm targeting a portion of that block to push in additional supports. So lots of different things you can do here as you're preparing your schedule and doing that setup, as well as you start scheduling. I'm going to do a little bit of a bake show trick here. And I'm going to pull a finished product out of the oven for you so you don't have to watch me drag and drop all of this. And I'm also going to show you now, I picked an example, a scenario of a schedule that has all the blocks placed, but also added some of those features I was talking about. As you need more things, it will very easily expand to show you those things and show you additional views and information that become relevant, such as departmentalization. So now I'm showing 5th grade. If I click in the 5th grade, I can see which homerooms are with each teacher at what points during the day. And I can see that I have set up 2 teams for departmentalization. I can also see what that means if I'm the teacher. So while my homeroom is going through their day, I'm going to see kids in a particular section in the morning and then a different section in the afternoon. So the system expanded to show you those views because they become relevant when you're using departmentalization and not necessarily when you're not. It also expanded to show me a tab for each day of the week. Subtle, you may not have noticed I didn't have that before because I said every day looks the same. But if I have an early release or some other special subject, a language lesson or something else that happens a few days a week, but not every day, not a problem. We can set that up so you can depict what's different on those different days very easily based on what your needs are. So dragging, dropping, this also has layered in interventions. So those purple blocks, as I was mentioning earlier, we look to stagger those to make sure that 3rd grade can be flooded with any special resources to help kids out that are wrestling with English and math and whatever, and not going across multiple grades at the same time. So they can productively regroup within those grades and go grade to grade to grade while maximizing their impact and reach. We also stagger other parts of the day. So a lot of folks ask us, do I start with special education and student services scheduling, or do I start with general education? We say aim for the middle. Build a main schedule that is going to account for the fact that you're going to have kids that have additional needs, and use the whole school day staggered like they are to make sure you're going to have opportunities for push in and pull out throughout the day, and that people providing those services won't be blocked in big blocks of time because everybody wanted ELA in the morning from being able to do their work and serve those kiddos. So there's some deliberate background behind why we built the schedule the way we did. I'm going to move, so it's very easy to iterate and build this homeroom schedule out with this main schedule. I'm going to move now over to specials to show you a few things that are going on here. Now, there's a couple different views, so I'll walk you through those. But the first thing is those orange blocks I placed. It's going to show me the sequence of those from the top of the screen to the bottom. So I see 5th grade in every classroom, followed by 4th grade and 3rd. Remember, we did that deliberately to make sure we reduce transition times. But it's showing me every day of the week. I need to say what special each classroom is in every day of the week to fulfill what I said I want for specials at each grade level. Well, we've given you the easy button, so no more slicing and dicing and figuring out how that works. You can go ahead and say, well, system, generate me a rotation. I'm going to use this staff sharing because I'll show you another feature in a moment, but you can optimize it to say, these people are in my building every day, try to equal the number of classrooms they serve every day. Or I can say, let's optimize because I have to share some people with other schools. It's going to give me an opportunity. It's showing me the specials I defined and how many instances of each special. I have PE twice a week, everything else once. And I'm able to reorder it into more of an ideal rotation. I don't want kids to get PE back to back. Maybe every other day would be nice. So I've set this up, very simple. I hit OK. The system goes through and says, that's what you can do to make sure that every classroom gets the specials they need throughout the week. You can manipulate any of these blocks if you need to. So if a particular teacher isn't in on a given day or at a given time, you can move that around so that you schedule them when they are available. We'll take this view, turn it on its side a little bit to give you another depiction of what this looks like. What we now have is by day, what's been scheduled. Any white space is open time or available time in the school day. And that might be time where I'm thinking about common planning time or something like that. And I can add any appropriate, I'll call this CPT, I'll say all teachers every day, and I'll pick, I believe it's around 10:30, it looks like, so 10:30 to, 9:30, that's 9:30 to 10:15. So I'll go ahead and just schedule that to 10:15. I'm going to make this common planning time. So there we go. Now I can create those types of things that you want your specialist teachers to have access to as a team. Maybe there's lunch later in here too, but the white space is open time or available time for that teacher. So if I'm sharing across schools, I want to do my best to free up a whole day where that teacher can be helping another school and not trying to break up their day in between. I may also see these little blocks of time throughout the day where maybe there's a duty or an opportunity for a teacher to push into a class that could be helping with something. I have the opportunity to do that here. The other really powerful thing is I'm in this fictitious school called Adams Elementary, and I have a sister school called Grant Elementary that I share a teacher with. So it's going to know that I have some of the people I've assigned to my specials that are appearing in other buildings. Remember, we did that staff setup and we put in the email. So the system knows the same person's in a couple of buildings, and it's going to flag that for me when I build this rotation. I'm going to take a look at Grant, and I can pick any of the scenarios they've built there. I'm coordinating naturally with that principal. And I can see that Vince Van Gogh, appropriately named, my art teacher, is busy on Friday. So they're at another school, and it's telling me right here, Grant Elementary. So one of those common planning times, you can see things will appear in red very quickly. If there's a conflict, I can say, you know what, I don't have Vince here on Friday, so I'm just going to go ahead and change that so that, and only this day, it'll remember I had this every day. And now I've deconflicted that. Vince is over there at Grant on Friday. So imagine, and if a teacher's shared across 2 or 3 schools, you'd be able to see that and you'd have that common view. We'll also build a common schedule for that teacher across all the schools they're serving. So shared staffing, very easy and very transparent to work through. We'll also keep track of what kinds of workloads the teachers have. So as I look at this and the way that we've initially spread it out, I probably want to balance out some things between my 2 PE teachers. So it's going to show me either in periods or minutes during the week in case some of your specials are longer or shorter than others. Just trying to figure out if that workload is balanced. It's also going to show me those section minutes. So how many minutes did each classroom get? Did I forget to schedule any of the specials for individual classrooms and so on? So it'll flag that here. All of these things, by the way, there's a check and balance we'll get to, validate, finalize. It's going to look at all these things in aggregate and tell you everything you need to fix along the way if there are any conflicts you've overlooked. So specials, very easy. So I think what you're seeing so far, if you're using a spreadsheet or using other methods where you have to manually remember or work through, I changed this, what's the dependency over here? You don't need to track that when you're using our software. We do that for you, saving you hours quite often. For all the horror stories we've heard where somebody starts the schedule and everybody missed for some reason this one conflict and you don't discover it until school starts, don't worry about that. You're going to know right away when that happens here. We'll keep track of that for you with the system. The other big thing that's happening, we made these decisions on the homeroom schedules. We just generated a specials rotation. The system's smart enough to say, well, I know what every teacher's schedule looks like based on those decisions. So all the while we're building these schedules behind the scenes, we're creating that homeroom schedule, the specials teacher schedules, and other staff, which I'll show you in a moment. But I can look at any homeroom teacher schedule across the school. In this case, I had a 5-day, those different tabs schedules. So I can see any differences that are occurring on different days, along with my full specials rotation. You can also see those specials teachers. I think I had Vince Van Gogh. Okay, well, maybe it was spelled a little different, but I can see what they're doing in my building as well as what they're doing across building. So all I did was looked at different views of that person's schedule, and Vince can get their full schedule with the work you're doing here. The other note here is other staff schedules. So when you're thinking about, could be a number of case scenarios here, but maybe I have a teacher that I push into reading as a teacher's aide, or maybe there's somebody else I want to assign to a classroom during a particular point in the day. In this case, I just double-clicked on that reading period. It brought me up, it showed me all the homeroom teachers, and then I have this opportunity to schedule other teachers or other adults that I've assigned to my building into those classrooms. And just by the nature of me going through and making those decisions of who's where when, the system will track, in this case, I'll use Dan Dewey in my example, but it's going to show me dynamically, well, what would that be as a schedule for Dan? And I've created a conflict here I'll have to go take a look at, but it's going to be able to generate those types of schedules on the fly. So imagine too, if you had duties where you want folks in that at lunch room or the recess, or maybe arrivals and dismissals, if you choose to schedule those, you can use the same feature to assign people to those duties based on what your strategies are and how people help out with that. So a light kind of duties schedule there as well. And because we've created that specials rotation, you can see the allocation of time for the specials. You can also see that detail on this view as well. So the system's creating those teacher schedules on the fly. You don't need to go handcraft those or worry about the dependencies of, I just changed this on the homeroom schedule. What does that mean for my kindergarten teacher? System will track it for you. It did expand to show a few more things. Again, because I have multiple days in my schedule on this example, it's going to show me what every day looks like. It's also because I've used departmentalization in 5th grade, right? I've got certain teachers teaching some subjects and not others. It's going to show me how I've set that up for my different teachers, my different homerooms, and what they're going to experience across the 2 teams I set up. So it's going to expand again based on the features you're using, and keep it nice and simple. If you don't need those, you don't need the noise. We'll keep it simple and make sure it expands as you have different needs. It will grow with you. So we have our main schedule. We're feeling pretty good. But what about that parent-teacher conference day, or maybe if we're in the Northeast, so your 1 hour delays, 2 hour delays, snow day sorts of scenarios, or different other schedules when the day is not the full day that you anticipate. Well, you can go ahead and create those. You don't have to, but you can create one or many of those alternate schedules to depict, well, how am I going to prioritize time when the schedule is different? So what I'm going to do is show you this example of a parent-teacher conference. And its typical day is 8 to 2. So I've shortened this to 8 to noon. And as I walk through this, it knows now that I've shortened the day by 2 hours. So it's going to tell me that on the bottom. So I have to reprioritize my time. This is a best practice. A lot of folks, or quite often we hear, well, when the day's shorter, I just kind of lob off whatever happens after noon in this example. Well, we know if you have 6 of these shorter days or something like that during the school year, kids are going to get a lot less instruction in those things that they miss every time that day is shorter. So we can rethink, what are the most important things that should occur in the school day when the day is shorter? And those are things we can help you think through and walk through as well. But I would need to shorten basically my period allocation, and it's just changing this alternate schedule allocation. It's leaving my main schedule alone, but I can create this dependent or related schedule and reduce the minutes. I'm going to leave this as is, and it's going to keep me honest. It's going to tell me I haven't adjusted it yet. But what you'll have now is another screen to rethink how the schedule looks. So if I need to get things out of this gray area where there is the day has been shortened and there is no longer classes being held in that window, I need to drag and drop things to make them fit into the shorter school day now. So you have the ability to create as many of those as is appropriate for your school. And those will be bundled with these scenarios. So when you think of scenario, it is the aggregation of the homeroom schedules, the special schedules, the alternate schedules, the different things that you will need to have related to one another in a bundle, and allows you to keep those separate from other schedules. So you don't copy the schedule and forget to change certain things. This is going to keep track of it and make sure all those dependencies are managed as you make changes or updates. Last but not least, and again, you can click this, validate and finalize at any point. That last alternate schedule and error, just to prove a point here. So at any point as you're building out your schedule, check your work. And that's what validate and finalize will do. It's going to look at a number of best practices, which are highlighted in these question marks. So you'll get some detailed what best practice or what did you just check against? And it will give you feedback on whether things are looking good. So those green check marks, or things probably deserve a closer look. There are certain things where you as the principal or you as the person scheduling for that building, they're at your discretion. You know best. But we're going to flag them for you so you can at least go say, yeah, I know it's a little different, but I'm okay with it. There's yet another category of items where they're really just not viable. In this case, I built a shorter school day and I didn't change the schedule. So there are things happening outside the school day. In all cases where we suggest you go back and look, it's going to give you a link right to the problem area. So I don't have to go hunting, looking through my different sheets to figure that out. It's just going to bring me right to the fact like, oh yeah, I have a shorter day and I haven't done anything about it. I'm going to go ahead and take a bit of a shortcut here, make it back inside the school day. Naturally, I wouldn't do that typically, but as I validate and finalize again, it's going to check everything and say, oh, you took care of that. So it's going to be able to walk through, flag things for you, help you understand areas you want to take a closer look at. It'll keep track of whether or not you've scheduled what you said to schedule, or if minutes are varying amongst classrooms and things like that. But once I get to a point where I'm feeling good about my schedule, I can go ahead and, even though there's warnings, if I'm the person building a schedule, I know best, I can say, let's finalize it. Finalize sounds way too permanent for what it is, but it's basically going to allow you to help point everybody to the schedule that you're going to use as your live version for the next school year, or as you make changes during the school year. You want to point everybody to that. At any point, if you need to go back and change your schedule, you just open it up by editing. But the finalization step, it allows you, if you're working in multiple different scenarios and you're sharing different scenarios with people for feedback, those are different URLs. When you're done and finalize, it's going to just help everybody go to the one that you want them to look at and follow. And that link that we share out, very simply, I can go ahead and share that schedule. What people are going to see is a view of the schedule that looks like this, inclusive of the parent conference or any other alternate schedules I've created, but they will have view-only access to their schedules and other schedules and print them if they need to. So they're going to get all the information that you want them to have as you finalize your schedules. A couple of other interesting notes here, just they're subtle, but we often target the specials classes as an opportunity for common planning time. And it may or may not work as nice and neat as it does here. We have lots of customers in Illinois where they've got kind of a straggling special for extra PE and things like that, where it doesn't always line up. So we have usually, like I said, a half a dozen ways where we can help you think through that common planning time, or think through how we might optimize the specials rotation with the staff you have. And if you're sharing schedules, how you might do that if they're in the building on certain days and not others. So lots of different ways we can get you there. Lots of variations that become personalized to your school in terms of what particular instance of a challenge do you have. But the software is highly flexible, saving you time, built in a way where we believe and we see people building better schedules, not just quicker and faster. And it allows you to have those conversations to help people make sure they're adopting that schedule and really getting a greater following of the goals and the expectations you have for students as you build out your schedules. So I'm going to pause here because I went through that very quickly, but we want to make sure that we create some time for answer some questions, as well as share with you an opportunity we have to help you get access to the software as part of your participation today. So I'm going to come back to the main. Alice, if you can go ahead and share up our presentation again, we'll take a look at it. One thing we wanted to make sure you had right up front was the pricing. So the software itself, what I was just walking through, it's $900 a year per school year, per school per year. And it's including the software support, which is answering questions about how I do this, how do I do that. We also provide you a bunch of additional resources through best practice webinars. So if you're not familiar or a new principal, or you're getting back into it, we walk you through some of those best practices so you can figure out how you best leverage them for your schools. Refresher trainings every year. So we're constantly adding new features, new behaviors based on what you're telling us as customers you need or things you'd like to see. We're constantly adding those. All those features become part of your license. And we'll also walk you through and make sure you know how to use all of those. And really that an ongoing support, as I mentioned. So that's $900 a school year. Some folks, as they get in there, say, you know what, I'd like a partner in building the schedule in DMschedules, and I'd like to be able to bounce some of those ideas off them about best practices or how might I solve for this particular problem I'm wrestling with. Well, for that, we offer Plus. So basically, you're going to get a dedicated coach to spend about 4 hours with you wrestling with whatever you'd like in the software and helping you make sure that you not only get a tool, but you build the schedule that you were aiming to build with that additional guidance of an expert. Strongly recommended for first year. A lot of people do that because they want to, yes, get it faster and easier, but also build that better schedule. So signing up for the Plus is what'll get you that extra help or that buddy to make sure they power through all those challenges with you. So with that said, We are going to offer a bit of a promotion today. So for those of you attending, and we're going to make sure we pause here in a moment to answer any questions you may have too. But for attending today, we're going to make sure we make a 14-day free trial available to you if you'd like to give it a run. And there are links on DMSchedules.com, and we'll follow up with everybody today too, just to make sure we understand what you're wrestling with, how we can best help you, but also how you take advantage of that offer. Oh, Alice, if you can pop, thank you. But how to take advantage of that. In addition, if you choose to purchase the software thereafter, which we would love to include you in our community of thousands of educators using this, we will extend your license for the first year by 1 month. So you'll get an extra month in your license to really power through your scheduling for this year and even get started with next year. So that's if you purchase a license, we'll give you that extra month as well. After today, as Alice was saying up front, we take this very seriously. We've gone through the effort to make sure that we've built in best practices, we've solved these problems, and we've built an arsenal of approaches to how to tackle a variety of problems for folks, whether you're an elementary school with 1,500 children in it, or one of our fond customers. I see some folks in Vermont with the one-room schoolhouse scenario. We have multiple grades in a single classroom. We've worked with folks and we've helped them solve problems around both instituting instructional learning and instructional best practices, as well as staffing shortages, as well as trying to find that extra time for interventions, common planning time, and others. So the tool is the way that we help facilitate that much faster, much easier, as Alice said out of the gate. There are other resources out here, so we welcome you to come out and take a look. We publish papers and other knowledge as well. But after today, we're going to reach out. We're going to just try to understand more about what your needs are, if we address those, and how we might be able to address those for you. Noting at the end of the webinar today too, you'll be given a survey just to help us understand some of that and see if there are things that we talked about today that are right on point for you. And if there are things that we didn't cover, but we could cover for you, we're going to make sure you have an opportunity to share that with us. So when we reach out to you, we have that information to make sure we use your time as effectively as possible. So I've said a number of things there, but I'm going to pop over to the QA and see what kinds of questions we have, as well as the webinar chat. And I know we have a few other team members that are out there in the audience today that were monitoring questions. So if you have those, go ahead and feel free to jump in and share those, but let's take a look. Couple of questions around working in K-8 schools and different grade levels. So this is based on cohort scheduling. So how do classrooms move through the school day? That said, we support a lot of K-8 schools, K7, K6s, 5/8s, variety of schools. It really just depends on how you're scheduling those kids, how you're sharing staff like specials or other teachers, departmentalization and so on. So we do support a lot of those schools, but let us talk to you and make sure that the way we do that works for you. So we do support the non-traditional, elementary grades. We also support, PK to 2s and 3 to 5s and you name it. So lots of cohort-based scheduling that we support. We also have, there is a question. So if you do have schedules where kids are moving, regrouping throughout the day and not in the same classrooms, often that, junior high school model, this is not what this is designed for. This is designed for classrooms moving throughout their school day together. That said, we have built, some people will use the school scheduling to build the bell schedule and then build the special education schedules on top of it, when services are happening and how to do that. But in most cases, we're not designing individual student schedules, we're building cohort schedules, so kids in the classroom. So thank you for that question. In terms of having multiple people accessing and work on the schedule together, absolutely. So we have a lot of schools with 3 or 4 people who are logging in, working on the schedule. You're looking at all of the same things though. So you're looking at the same scenarios. If you change a scenario, it's going to change for everybody. People will often use different scenarios to kind of cordon off their work, or just they collaborate in a way where somebody knows they're building out the schedule. Absolutely, you can have multiple people. Doesn't change the price. It's $900 a school. Doesn't matter how many students you have, unless you have 100 or fewer students. We do have a price break for that. But otherwise, the license doesn't change based on how many people you have in their scheduling or how many students or how many staff. So thank you for that question. And we would, yes, we would create multiple logins for that school to cover that scenario where you have a team of schedulers, which we promote as a best practice. We also have, oh, I just mentioned it. So individual schools, the license is applied to each school and not students or not this. If you have a district level, talk to us. We'll try to figure out how to best serve you there. But we do district level projects where all the schools in the district are working together, and we'll do some shared events like onboarding and training where everybody's hearing everybody's questions, things like that. So we work with district level implementations as well as school level. And then also, for staff and student integration. Yeah, so it doesn't integrate with Clever today. Most folks have just plugged them in because it's easy and simple enough to do. We do integrate for the special education side where we're pulling in student services and a whole number of other things to consider there. We do imports and kind of pull in data in mass in terms of students that receive services and what their IEPs are and so on. So in the school scheduling, it's not something we import schedules into today. The setup is often something we're doing too. So if you sign up for the software, we'll ask you a couple of simple questions and we'll get it preset for you to get in and start scheduling right away, with the exception of just entering staff. Thank you for those questions. Let me just check too. It looks like maybe another question just came through. Yeah, so it doesn't, right now, what people find, what people tell us is they build the schedule into DMSchedules and they use that to communicate with folks exactly what that schedule is, but it's not kind of pushing back into the SIS. So you'd still build your roster for classrooms and SISs and whatever else you'd need to do there. But this is actually replacing the scheduler in the SIS in majority of our clients. So thank you for that as well. All right, I think, oh, another question. So I'm sure the questions will keep coming. Don't hesitate to reach out to us too, by the way. We're going to share this presentation with you, so there's plenty of contact information. We're going to reach out to you, but we will definitely look to continue to answer your questions. We hope this is the start of the conversation, not the end for you. But let me just take a look at the other questions coming through. Yeah, so some integration questions here as well, and I see some of the team members responding. But it's quick, it's easy. If you choose to sign up for the free trial and or later sign up, excuse me, for the licensed product, you'll have full access to all the features. We get you up and running in 24 hours. So you let us know, we'll get you up and running after a few questions, and you're in there and you're building your schedules within a day. So very quick turnaround for that. And it's something where all along the way, if you have questions or you hit that speed bump or that sticky point where you're not quite sure how to do something for scheduling, just reach out to us. And like I said, there's lots of other resources to help you along. Looks like there's a few other questions here. Yes, so in terms of what you need to set up, you just need to set up the basic parameters and then go ahead and drag and drop. So it's that simple. Just and that's often, again, something we'll set up in advance is that period allocation. If you have one, give it to us. Or if you have an existing schedule you want to plug in, so you start with that context, give it to us, we'll set it up for you, and then you can schedule from there. So thank you for that question as well. Yeah, and departmentalization. So again, if it's some grades, not others, no problem. If you have some grades with an odd number of teachers or classrooms and others with even, that's fine. You can have a team of 2 and a singleton teacher, or a team of 3 and a team of 2, or whatever mix and matches, it's fine. And it can be different across different grades. So it's whatever your teams are, we'd support that. And then also, let's see here. I think I've responded to all the questions there. I'm going to, last one here. Got you. Okay, so importing students. Yeah, so that is something we have, as I noted earlier, we add features all the time. So when people start using it and say, oh, you know what would be nice? So we'll put those into our queue, and the ones that most people are asking for, we work on those first. So as we added the feature for adding staff or defining those staff, one of the things that's in the queue to get after is to allow you to just import those over time. So that's something, it's not there today, but it is something that's in the queue that we're working on. All right, I'm going to pause here to be respectful of your time. Like I said, reach out to us. So if you have questions or you want to give it a run with the free trial, I'd encourage you to do so. Cost you nothing to get started, just your time and thinking through how could you save time by using software and solve a lot of those problems that we talked about up front. So Thank you all for your time today. We truly appreciate, we know a lot of things competing with your time, but we are looking forward to connecting with you and hope to speak to all of you soon and get you up and running in DM schedules. Thank you so much. And on behalf of Alice and the rest of my colleagues, we appreciate again your time. Take care, everybody.